table was touching the camera. And
hello and welcome to World Sand Project, Mon. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Younis. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to look at some sand from Corona del Mar, the crown of the sea in California, and it's a very interesting sand sample.
Did you say crown?
Yeah, crown of the sea. You can wear your... So stick with us. We'll be back in the intro. We are going to open up the phone lines, so if you have any questions on the topic, please feel free to call in and ask us. There we go. So I didn't check your audio before you get started. Would you count to 10 for me? Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right. So your crown is appropriate because we are going to be talking about an area called Corona del Mar, which is off Newport Beach in California. The sample was sent to us by Heidi Hill, as I'll talk about in a minute. But first...
Housekeeping, you want towels?
You want some towels so that in case you go out to the beach to collect some sand, you want to get all that sandy, beachy, stuffy off of you. So
Stuffy,
I don't know. Because I'm not a beach person, so... Although I guess I'm going to have to be now that I'm doing this, right?
I guess so.
Could be our next
I
vacation.
guess so.
Tell Kevin we may be headed for the beach.
Oh, well, hey, he won't mind that. He likes the beach and the ocean and the waves.
Do me a favor and make sure before you leave today's video, you like our video, and because apparently George Foreman likes it when you like our video.
Ah.
I know because it's said in the little box.
And so do the beluga whales.
Yeah, beluga whales.
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm
do.
happy to hear that.
Baby beluga.
Is that like a baby shark? Except
That's
it's a
way before. That was Raffi, back when my kids were little.
Raffi, a person I do not know. Share it with your family, friends, neighbors, business associates, and the entirety of your social network so that we can
grow the channel.
And finally, if you're not already a subscriber, this would be the ideal time to subscribe because on... Oh, I forgot to ask you. Wait, let me finish this. Because next Friday at 3 p.m., when we have our next show this week, we will be announcing a giveaway. So, subscribing will let you know when we launch a live stream or when we schedule a live stream, and you will be ring the notifications bell. And a result of that, you will be
in the know.
I forgot to talk about this.
Yeah.
So here's my thought.
Okay.
Would you like to do 2 of these shows a week, Wednesdays and Fridays, 3 p.m. before?
What if I say no?
Well, I think I'll do them by myself, but I don't think he'll say no.
What are you going to do for me?
I will give you 2 Christmas presents. No, is that not enough?
We'll talk about it later.
Okay. Anyway, so there is a 50-50 probability that we will have a show at 3 o'clock on Friday?
There's a whole probability. If you're going to do it, you're definitely going to have a show.
I wouldn't do it without you.
You wouldn't?
No, I wouldn't do it without you. What fun would that be? What fun would it be for me to do a show here? Who's going to come and see Toby without seeing the
no, they
magical
do it all
treasure
the time.
games? Well, yeah, but that's because...
I don't know. Let's ask the chat room.
All right. Ask them if they think it's a good idea to have a show on Friday.
Would you guys come back on Friday if we were both here doing sand stuff?
Yeah, doing another sand show. Because we've got a bunch of samples that we got to get taken care of, and we need to build some content. So we might as well use those sand samples that we're getting to build some content.
Uh-huh. Okay, let us know in the chat room.
All right.
You come back on Friday.
So, brief mission statement. The reason that we started this channel was to make our viewers aware that there is a precious resource, the most precious solid resource on the planet, that is being consumed faster than the planet's ability to replenish it, and that is sand. And it's getting to the critical point. This year, we will use 50 billion tons of sand in construction worldwide. And it's gotten to the point where people are regulating it, people are dying over it, people are fighting over it, and countries are debating over it. For example, 3 Southeastern Asian countries have now declared that Singapore can no longer take sand from any place on their shores, or near their shores. So it's a big argument, and as I said, behind air and water, it is the most consumed resource, believe it or not, and that's why we started this channel, just to make people aware of it. And the way that we're doing that is we're asking you, our viewers, to send us a sample of sand from some place near your locale. And that sample can come from a beach on the ocean, a beach on the lake, a river, a dry riverbed.
How about the Smoky Mountains? Because J.K. Pioneer wants to send us sand from there.
Yeah, absolutely, because there is sand in all the rivers that go through there. As a matter of fact, a lot of the sand that ends up on the beaches in the East Coast comes from the Appalachians and the Smokies, because that's how it gets there. And we'll talk one of these days, we'll have a little show on the geology of sand and how it gets from being in a granite mountain onto the ocean, because that's the only way it gets there. Now, there's other types of sand that come from the ocean, but they all come from igneous rock, and the differences are that the ocean base is a basalt, while the continental base is a granite. But because they're rocks are made from minerals. The minerals break down, and we see them in the form of sand in little tiny shapes. So, but you're going to learn more about that as we continue this program, because I'm learning more about it. Okay?
And we have Rick in the room, who's also a geologist, who can also help us to answer any questions about geology.
Even better, he can correct all the mistakes that I'm making about geology. All right, so let's take a look.
We have Britt Chaser in the room, all the way from Great Britain.
Take a look at where we're going. I'm going to do a window shot here, right there.
We also have K-Pro, and as I said, JK Pioneer, and that's it.
Okay, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But, yeah, the important thing is to produce the content production. And Jono, I want you to know that I did get that link that you sent me. Jono sent me a link to a video of a company, and I think it was in Britain, or maybe it was New Zealand, that is recycling glass into sand to be used for a variety of purposes in replacement of sand. I can't, of course, show that video on our channel, but I will put a link to it in the description box below before this gets uploaded to YouTube. So, Jono, thank you very much for that. It's a very, very constructive look at how they're recycling their glass. Okay, so let's take a look at where we're going right now. We are going to a location called Corona del Mar State Beach, near, I guess it's on the beach at where Newport Beach is. Newport Beach is one of the exclusive communities in Southern California. It's in Orange County, between Los Angeles and San Diego. And I actually lived there for a while. I lived there for about 6 months in a project. And if you ever get to Newport Beach, I can't imagine it's still there, but make sure you get to the Red Onion on Thursday nights. Party time.
Thursday nights.
Thursday nights. It has to be Thursday nights. For some reason, I didn't know what it was. It may not still be there.
Thursday night is
a long time ago.
night.
So the other thing that's interesting about this, and you'll see the comparisons in just a minute as I go through the images, is that this is about 20 miles north as the crow flies from the beach that we took a look at last week. I think it was, do you remember the name of the beach? San Clemente State Beach. So this location is about 20 miles north of that, still on the California coast. But you'll see that the sand is slightly different, and I'll show you a comparison in just a minute. So the area looks like this, and that's the jetty. That's the jetty that leads into the marina. And let me go back so you can see exactly where that is. So that's this area right here. That's part of it. There's 2 jetties that lead into the marina. They have a beautiful marina. It is very well appointed. I've sailed out of there a couple of times. So that's the jetty. This is the area. And by the way, it was... I need to go back. Let me do something. So this sample was collected by our viewer, Heidi Hill. She lives in Irvine, California. So let's go back.
And we thank Heidi for her contribution to our channel.
Yeah, we do. Thank you very much. And we look forward to other folks making contributions as well. in the form of sand. So this is looking south towards the city of Newport Beach. And one
Pretty
of the
picture.
things, it is, one of the things that you're going to notice about California beaches is that California beaches are open. And that's as a result of Proposition 20 that was passed in 1974 called the California Coastal Protection Act. And basically, it not only established the environmental conditions for protecting the coast, but it also said that the coast cannot be privately owned. Now, as you can see, there are areas that are basically cliffs where people have built condos and houses. That is not beach. And they can build on the beach as long as it's X number of meters behind the high water mark. So that and they have to provide openings. So you can't build a series of houses that don't provide access to the beaches. You'll see as you go to some of these houses, and I have friends that have houses in Oxnard and Ventura, a couple of other places, and about every 5 or 6 houses, there's effectively a pathway that leads to the beach. You cannot obstruct access to the beach in California. Now, it turns out that a number of other states have adopted similar propositions, similar laws to protect their beaches in the same way. But California was the first. What's really interesting, and it was a result of the Santa Barbara oil spill in 1969. The reason I know all about this is because I worked with my friend Janet Bridgers on the documentary. Janet is the president of Earth Alert, and she's a California native, and or actually spent most of her life, not a native, but spent most of her life in California and was very active when it came to environmental issues. I'd call her an environmental activist, and she asked me to work on this documentary with her. And of course, I found out a lot about the California coast, Proposition 20, the Santa Barbara oil spill, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the most intriguing things that came out of this for me was that during this period, it was during the period in which Richard Nixon was president. And because of the actions he took as part of all this, of course, he was from San Clemente, California. Because of part of the actions he took, he literally became the most prolific protector of the environment of any president in history. It's just kind of weird that it was him because he wanted to win the next election, and he thought by being environmentally active, it would help him win the election. So it was all political for him, but it turns out that he did so much from the EPA's perspective, it's establishing the EPA, et cetera, that he became the most environmentally conscious president in history. How's that for a little tidbit, something that you probably didn't know? So that's another view. Again, you're looking at the one of the jetties. That would be the southern jetty that leads into it. There's always sailing along the California coast, especially in the afternoon, and you can see where the beach ends and the rocks start. But again, you'll see parking lots right there. So the only reason this has no beach access is because it doesn't go all the way around to the beach, which is over here further north. But you do have access to the water, to parking, to all of these things. They can't block you from that according to the law. So that's another view, again, looking north from that cliffside area that we were looking at. And again, you can build down to the water if indeed there is no beach. You can't build on the beach, basically. And if you do build on the beach, my daughter's calling me.
In the middle of a show?
Yeah, why did they do that in the middle of the show? Hi, sweetie, is this important? Okay, I'm in the middle of the show. I'll call you as soon as we're done, all right? Love you. Pardon me? I will. Okay, love you. Bye-bye. So that was my daughter, Sean. Sean is the artist, as you know. She does retablos and Muerto work, and she said to say hi to everybody. So I'll call her afterwards. She was picking up the voice. Now, one of the things that I did is I took the liberty of going to Google Earth and collecting an additional couple of photos from the area. This one, as you can see, is very similar to the one that Heidi Hill took. This is by Rakesh Siripura. I can't pronounce that. Can you pronounce it?
Siripurapu.
Siripurapu, and folks put their photos on Google so that other people can see them and use them in this way as long as they get credit for them. And as you can see, I don't know whether you can see it, but that's a yellow rope right there, and that yellow rope establishes the border for a beach volleyball field or beach volleyball court. So there's a lot of those, and some of them are permanent, some of them are not, but there is a lot of beach volleyball. So I didn't, I borrowed this picture from Lily Curtis, and I didn't get it because of the bird, because it's a crazy bird, but I wanted you to notice.
I've never seen a bird like that.
It is kind of.
Those legs.
Yeah.
It's like a pigeon with high heels or something.
Pigeon. Do you think he trips a lot?
I don't know. It's a funny bird.
But what I wanted you to see was the background and how the beach at this area has eroded. It's eroded up to the high water line, and eventually that has to be replaced with something. So you hope that the ocean would do it at certain times of the year, depending on the wave motion and the tides. But that's how the erosion starts. It just keeps working its way higher and higher up as the land lowers. Now, another impact on this is going to be the melting ice flows, because we are experiencing some climatic changes. And so as the water level increases here, and so that wave action goes progressively higher as well. But that's the reason I wanted you guys to see this photo. And then this one is just another view from the beach looking south towards Newport Beach, but the homeowners area or the condo area of Newport Beach. And you can see they have beach right up to where it turns into cliffside. And then they have access. If you go up there, there's actually a parking lot up in this area. And these are houses and condos. And they're very expensive. They're just really very expensive. But it's a nice broad beach, and everybody has access to it because it's California, and that's what the law says. So these are a couple of photos I took before, and what I noticed about this particular variety of beach sand was that it had a little bit more tan look than we've seen, and I'll show it to you in comparison in just a minute. But you can see there's a lot of tan-colored quartz and feldspar in it. This is just a little bit closer view. And then this is a close-up view of something that's not just a mineral. This one, effectively, since it looks like it has two different minerals in it, becomes a rock at this point. And what was really curious to me, and I didn't notice until afterwards, I was so focused on this area right here, is I looked behind it, and there it looks like there's some magnetite, and that to me looks like a very slim sliver of silver or gold. Gold maintains its shine, so it could very well be a little tiny sliver of gold, but that's a guess. No evidence of such. So this is what it looks like in comparison. So this is the far left is the beach sand that we got from William Hatta in Connecticut. This is the Rio Grande sand that I collected. This is the Prince Edward Island sand that was collected by Doug Carver. This was the sand from San Clemente Beach, and as I said, this was collected by Oscar Rodriguez. And this sand was collected basically at a location 20 miles south of where this sand was collected, and you can see there is a difference. This has a little bit more tan look to it. This is the whitest one was from Connecticut, but this is kind of a light tan, while this has more tan color in it. And that's a result of the kinds of minerals that are contained in this particular sand, and they came from a different location, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why you see these varying colors in each of the sand. Now, I'm not going to do this for every one of them because eventually we're going to have a collection. I mean, I've got probably 15 of these now from different locations, including the Wisconsin fracking sands, Great Sand Dunes National Monument, White Sands, other locations. Now, if we have a show on Friday, we're going to be showing you some sand that was sent to us by Lisa Smith, and Lisa sent us some river sand from two locations in Washington State.
There.
And you can't see it. Hang on, let me go back for just a sec. So if we do, we're going to show the sand that Lisa sent us from a river in Washington. And as you can see, it's a very dark colored sand. So I'm expecting that we're going to find some, with a greenish tint.
Or is that mold?
No, it's not. I've got it. It is wet. I got to dry it out. So one of the things that I discovered is that a lot of this sand that folks send us comes wet, and I have to let it sit a day for it to dry out, for it to dehydrate.
Well, luckily it's very dry here.
Yeah. So it goes.
Although we did have
quickly.
some rain this morning.
Yeah, we did. I was really surprised. Looked out the old window when I got up, and it was wet outside. The other thing that we might find in that sand is some very tiny garnets, because a lot of the times the mountain rivers wash out little tiny sapphires, little tiny garnets that come from the mountains as minerals. So So I wanted to point that out for comparison. So one of the things that I did is we're always talking about the little black stones. Shelley always notices them. So what I did is, no, I'm okay.
Oh, you don't want to show it yet?
Well, I don't want to show it. So what I did is I took one of the magnets off my magnetic whiteboard and I ran it through the sand and it collected a lot of those little tiny magnetites. And this is what it looks like close up. So those are all the magnetites that are collected here on this little magnet that came from the sand itself.
Cool.
And you can see them when we do the close-up of the sand. You can actually see them mixed in with the sand, and they're the black ones. Now, there may be some, basalt in there. There could be some obsidian. The obsidian is very distinct because it has that conchoidal fracture that granite does. That quartz does. But you can the little sized magnetites, because they're very oddly and sharply shaped, and they're high metallic content. You can see they don't break up much. They have a very sharp edges to them as opposed to some of the quartz. So, but you'll see them as we open up and take a look at the sand itself. So let's do that. I'm going to transfer over now to the microscope, and I'll turn my shoulder when I do that so you guys can see what's going on. So this is highest magnification. This is magnification 1. Now the 1 is actually a little bit more than 1 because of the effect. There's also a lens on the camera. And what I'm going to do this weekend, maybe even tomorrow, is I'm going to do kind of a review of all the equipment that we're using in order to do this, so you have a sense of the equipment that we have to be able to do this. And as you can see, it isn't quite as tan as it looked inside the vial, but it's a lot more tan than a lot of the samples that we've had since we started collecting samples. And of course, you can also see those little tiny specks of magnetite, the black magnetite here and here that were collected by the magnet. And then there's some larger rocks. Those are rocks because they're not just minerals. I don't think. I can't tell until we get closer. But most of it is quartz, and a lot of it is a light yellow feldspar, and a lot of it is a light yellow quartz. I also noticed that in this particular sample, we got our first shell fragments, so we're going to take a look at those. So I'm going to give you, I have a new device on the microscope, and it enables me to use micrometer-sized movements. So let's go to that one first. That's our first shell. Actually, we'll do a quick review and see what else is on there. So that's those two things, the two big things there that you can see are shell fragments. And as we get closer, you'll actually be able to see some of the designs in them. As I scroll across, you'll be able to see blues and greens size stones. And again, all those white and clear, the clear ones are just like everything else that we've seen in sand. Quartz, which is a form of silicon dioxide, which is what sand is made of. But you'll see a lot of other colors as well. Browns and yellows, greens and blues. I thought I saw a red one in there, and I took a picture of it. I may have to show you the picture. Yeah, there's something. Oh, you're right. Right in there. There's a small red one. So we'll come back to that.
K-Pro says, is some sand better than others for building that you are showing?
There are varieties of sand that are used for different purposes. The best sand for building, for construction, is river bottom or beach sand. And that's because it has the most variety of objects in it, and they all kind of lock together, and that helps it. The worst variety for construction is desert sand, because it's been polished effectively and turned into, it would be, and I've used this example before, it would be like building a house out of marbles rather than chunky blocks of broken brick. Then that's the difference. What they use for construction is the sand that looks more like chunky blocks of broken brick. Now there's even more refined
Trying to say
sand
that three times fast.
Chunky blocks of broken brick. There is even more refined sand. There's a type of sand that is being mined in Wisconsin, Illinois, and Minnesota that is so refined it's used for only for one thing, and that's for fracking. And I have a sample of that sand, and when we get to that point, it's a big controversy in Wisconsin because it produces, revenue, it produces local income, it produces income that the farmers, because what's happening is they're digging under farmers. So farmers are actually making a conscious decision to quit raising crops and allow the oil companies to come in and start digging this very fine, refined sand on their property, and they get a royalty check. And that royalty check from an oil company is really hard for them to turn down. So there's a lot of controversy about that. But you'll see when we look at that sand, it almost looks like it's almost as fine as sugar, and it doesn't have anything mixed with it. It's all very pure, very refined, and apparently the oil companies love it for the purposes of fracking, which is a way to extract oil and gas from the earth. It's not a great way to do it, but it's what we do now. So as you can see right in there, there's a little pink one right there. There's a pink. That's probably a quartz with, and whenever quartz is other than clear, white, if you will, whenever it's transparent, that simply means it's quartz with impurities. So as an example, if you've ever seen a purple amethyst, if your birthstone is amethyst, I don't know what month that is. Do you know?
Amethyst?
Yeah.
April?
April?
I don't remember.
So
No, that's
amethyst
diamond.
is actually quartz with impurities in it that color it purple. There's rose quartz, there's red quartz, there's this tan quartz, and they're just the tan quartz actually is the result of being infused with some iron as well, and that's where it gets the tan color. So all of these lighter colored ones are either if they're opaque, it is very likely that they're feldspars. If it's clear, then it's quartz, and it could be quartz with anything from purple to green to tan to yellow to orange, because a citrine is basically an orange quartz. So you may see some of those in here mixed in with the sand. And this piece, pardon me.
February.
This is another one of the
Your daughter Toby's.
shell fragments by Toby's in the room.
No, but your daughter Toby is a February birthday.
Oh, that's right. I've given her amethyst present. I should know that. Okay, so forgive me for turning my shoulder because I do have to turn back to the microphone. And then the one that I noticed that was real interesting was, you can see along the edge of the glass here is that little shiny thing in the center. And I know it's not quartz because it's not transparent. So the problem is when I try to zoom in on it, and let's start zooming in on some of these things. When I try to zoom in on it, the glass, because it's near the edge of the glass, it affects the zoom.
Take your little tool out and stir it up.
If I do, I'm going to lose everything else. I made that mistake at the beginning of the week when I was taking the initial pictures. So the nice thing about it is with this new stage, dual action stage, it's real easy to... so let me zoom in all the way, and I'm going to back out, and let's see if I can find it again. There it is right there. But the problem that I'm having with it is that it's so close to the edge of the glass. I'm actually getting a reflected light from the edge of the glass, and that creates an additional thing. But as you can see, that's a solid. That's not quartz like some of the objects right next to it. You can see obviously are transparent. Those are quartz. This one is a solid, but it has a metallic look to it. And there's only a few minerals that have that metallic look. I don't have the list with me, and maybe Rick might be able to identify some of it. So let's go up and take a look at those shell fragments. And I think they were further out. Right, there's one right there. So let's take a look at that. You can actually see, I'm going to zoom back out just a little bit. And again, it's very close to the glass, so we're going to get some reflection from it. Let me take the zoom out just a little bit.
That one's kind of hard to see.
Yeah.
I think there's ones further in.
Well, let me do this. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the exposure, and I'm going to reduce the brightness a little bit. And you can see that it's very smooth and rounded around the edges, but it is a fragment unlike your normal rock fragments, and it does have some holes in it right there, which is an indication that it could very well be a shell fragment. And I don't think that's in dispute. So let me go back up so we can find that other one.
Rick says, looks like galena.
Galena, the metallic looking one. Okay, great. See? Now we've learned something new. Thanks to Rick. So let's go back. I thought, there's the other one. Now this one is, to me, very obviously a shell fragment.
It's still got the stripies on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me change the exposure back, make it a little bit brighter here. So we zoom in on that. Now you'll have to forgive me. With this microscope, if I was looking for the eyepieces through the lenses, I wouldn't have to refocus every time. But because we're using the camera here, it requires me to refocus because the camera is not in tune with. So there we are. So that's, like I said, very obviously a shell fragment. And you can see a lot of different things around it. Let me change the exposure again. I'm going to bring the brightness down again so you guys can see it. So shell fragment, a little bit of magnetite on the side there. I'm actually going to take a picture and save it so that I can add that to the collection. Okay, and a lot of other things happening around it. Let me go back up in brightness. So we can see, you know, the dark orange color, yellow color, green color, the bluish green color, the magnetite. Those are the little black stones that are
Rick says calcium carbonate.
in the shells.
Must be.
Yeah. So shells actually have are made of minerals. So let's slide across, see what else we can see. There's a nice dark blue one that part of me wants to believe is a lapis. But again, it's just, let's see how close we can get to it. So it's got a very nice look to it. It's got a little bit of white, you know.
Like a flower petal.
Yeah, yeah. So at that point, because it has more than one mineral in it, so it could have, you know, one like a lapis and then it has some calcium in it, it now becomes a rock. So it's no longer a mineral. Minerals have very specific characteristics. And these, for example, this is quartz. They're made of silicon and oxygen, which, by the way, are the two most common elements on the surface of the planet. So that's why we see so much.
Rick, do you think the purple is a piece of shell or the white was?
So let me zoom back out and let's take a look across, see if we see anything else more photograph worthy.
There's another
There's
one.
another blue one. Yeah. So that
Purple. The purple, he says, is a piece of shell.
it is a piece of shell. Okay, so we have more than one of those as well, and it does have that. It does have a very similar shape to the other pieces, the white ones we saw. So let's take a look at that a little bit closer. So he thinks that's some sort of shell, and if you look at the shape, it has that elongated shape that the other shell fragments had as well. So it's a good-looking little shell piece. It's, you know, what's sad to me is I take all these pictures. It's sad to me, not sad, but it's unfortunate that you can't, you know, these things are so small you can't make jewelry from them, you know,
Right.
because I think some of
Just
them would,
make pictures and put
Yeah.
them on the wall, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. So let me take a picture of that.
Corey Jacobs says, do minerals have a crystalline structure that sets them apart from a regular rock or just their chemical makeup?
Actually, it's one of the 5 requirements of a mineral. It has to have a crystalline structure. If it doesn't have a crystal, so it has to be non-organic. It has to have a crystalline structure. It has to have a very specific chemical makeup, like silicon dioxide for quartz. Well, I remember all of them. It does have to have the crystalline structure, and there was one other one. Oh, it has to be a solid as it sits in nature. So mercury, for example, is not a mineral because it's not a solid in nature. Some people argue that ice meets all the criteria. So there's an argument as to whether ice is actually a mineral, but it's one of the, they have to have a
wouldn't
crystal
think it would-
structure.
Ice is temperature dependent. I wouldn't think
Yeah.
a mineral would be temperature dependent.
It has to be in solid form as it sits in nature.
Yeah.
So if you're up in Antarctica,
Yeah, but if you took that and you moved it down to Arizona,
then it wouldn't.
it would
wouldn't
no
be. That's
longer
that's
be.
where the argument.
Whereas if you took any other mineral, it
in
would still
situ,
be.
in situ, ice in situ is a mineral. Any place else, it's not. Any place that melts in the water, it's not. So these, and Rick can probably correct me, but I assume that since this shell was originally produced as a result of organic activity, right? It was produced by an organism at some point, so it's organic. It's not a mineral. It's a shell because it doesn't meet the requirements of being a mineral. So back out again here. Let's see what else we can find and zoom in on. So again, you're seeing a broad variety of colors. Go ahead. That's that red one. There's a red one that I saw, and like I said, I took a picture of it. I haven't uploaded it. So that looks more like a feldspar or a jasper because it's not transparent, right?
Translucent?
It's solid, translucent.
Yeah.
So, but it is very attractive, and it's very different from the rock next to it is like a yellow orange, and that one that you're pointing to is almost the same thing, but with a blue color to it, right? It has the same little pock marks in it. So, and some of these, are literally, some of them to get to this point have traveled hundreds of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and sometimes millions of years to get to this point. So we're looking at some very old material in some cases. Oh, look at that. That's a little human contribution right there.
What's that?
That thread.
Oh, a thread?
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that funny? It got caught up in it.
Looks like floss.
It'd have to be very small to just not, let's see what else we've got around here.
Rick says the red could be garnet.
Garnet. I expect to see some garnet in the show that we do from the rivers. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some garnet there. But again, the majority, as you look at it, is quartz, and it's either clear quartz. You can see 3 or 4 colors of quartz here, from the bright white to the tan to the slightly tinted to that one right there that has a lot of yellow in it. So, and the reason is that comes from the mountains.
It's kind of a pink color there.
There's a nice little bright pink thing there. Let's see what that one is.
It's a shrimp.
A shrimp. Shrimp that got caught up in the activity. But again, the other thing that you can see is a lot of those small black
Oh, interesting.
that's real interesting. I'm going to guess that's a shell too. But if you look over to this right here, look at right there. Mm-hmm. That looks like some more of that galena.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the metallic luster to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, we're going to have to cut off our show here. Let me just get one last look, see if there's anything. There's that one last shell fragment there. So that shell, as Rick said, is calcium carbonate, which is what?
Like a tiny unicorn horn.
Yeah, it is. But again...
Or a narwhal.
Narwhal. So green, the green is can be, because it's got a transparent look to me, looks like olivine, which I'm always looking for. It's about the same color. It's got that, you know. Zoom in a little bit further, see what I can get. Now, one of the problems is when we're this magnified, the depth of field, what can stay in sharp focus is very, very narrow. So that is sand. That was sent to us by
Heidi
Hill from Corona del Mar. Corona del Mar is crown of the sea in Spanish, or sea crown, I guess, if you were translated just perfectly literally, but it would be crown of the sea. That was sent to us there. If we're here on Friday, and I'm going to leave that up to the magical treasure princess to make a decision, because I just literally got the idea about 5 minutes before she got here, and I didn't get a chance to talk about it. And then lastly, I'll show this to you again. This is the magnet that I dragged through the sand sample that picked up all those little tiny magnetites, and they have a very metallic look. They are metal. They are magnetic, and they do collect on another magnet. So it was an interesting experience for me. So like I said, we'll be doing something on Friday. I'm hoping to do the river sand, because she sent us sand from 2 different locations on the river. And I'm hoping that we're going to see some gemstones in there, some little tiny miniature gemstones, some garnets, and some miniature sapphires. So. Oh, I forgot to do the and let me stop. So one of the things that Shelley asked me to do was, when we did the pictures, she actually asked me to do this. So
Yeah, well, they don't see that. They don't see that.
oh, okay. So as we were doing these, we got a water sound effect, a seashore sound effect. So we're going to play the seashore sound effect. Oh, we're doing that. I forgot to do it today. So I'll do it the next time. And
Hey, thanks for being here today, for all your great conversation in the chat room. Thanks to Rick for being here and helping us identify some of these specimens within our sand samples. And I suppose we'll be seeing you very soon, probably on Friday. So I'll be looking for that announcement. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe and click on the bell so you get notified when we go live.
so how's this little calypso thing going to work when we do river sand?
I don't know. Is
We'll
there
just
a
have to
river
play-
song we
I
can
don't
find?
know. I don't know. I'm okay
river
with this
song?
one. It's kind of, we can make it.
We have the sand
Hey.
in the back, the beach.
And
back here.
yeah, it is true. I'm Toby Younis. Thanks for joining us today on the World Sand Project. And keep in mind why we're doing this, to make everybody aware that sand is a precious resource, and we are using it more rapidly than the planet has the ability to replace it, to replenish it. And that's because it takes so long to produce a grain of sand. Amazing that we even came up with a problem, but it's a problem, and it's going to get worse because it's the basis for that construction is the basis for our civilization. So imagine if you couldn't build buildings. All right.
Or
Thanks for
roads.
joining us. We will see you on Friday. Hopefully, if not, then we will see you next Wednesday at the same time.